So welcome, everybody. Thank you for taking time out this morning on your busy, cold January day. And today we have Alex Miller from the Missouri Scholarship and Loan Federal Foundation.
Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation. Yep.
Yeah. So as our speaker, so I'm going to let her take over from here. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Anne. It's so nice to see everyone this morning. I know there were two other sessions that you could have chose from, so I appreciate you being here to learn more about our new scholarship program. My name is Alexandria Miller. I'm with Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation, as Anne said. I'm a program manager here. I've been in this position for about 8 months. Really, my career has been in post-secondary in the financial aid world. When I left the post-secondary world in the college side, I actually was a senior director of financial aid. And so I, had about 9.5 years in that side. And now I always say that I came to the fun side, the scholarship side. And so today we're going to talk about our newest scholarship program, my Missouri Scholarship Promise Program. And you'll hear me refer to it as MIMO. So just a little bit about Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation. If you've never heard of us, I hope today we'll be able to connect and learn more about our programs and how we can help you better serve your Missouri students. But our mission here at the foundation really is just to give back. We're MOHELA's foundation, and so MOHELA is a federal loan servicer. And so our whole mission is to give back and create these products and services to Missouri students. And really, we focus in on those with insufficient funds and resources. And so, with this program, you really hear me talk about the low income and, what that means for this program. And we just want to put them with this program on a pathway to plan, prepare, and save for post-secondary. And so really the goal is just that, to put freshmen in high school, current freshmen in high school, on that pathway. And again, they do have to be low income. And so we'll kind of talk about that definition here in a second. But how are we going to do that? And everyone kind of looks at me crazy like, yeah, freshmen aren't thinking about post-secondary, especially low income families, because they're more than likely first gen, and they just don't have the mindset that this is an option. And so we're going to put them on this pathway by achieving intentionally built benchmarks. And of course, with that comes an incentive of a scholarship. And so if they complete all of the benchmarks through their high school career, they could have up to $10,000 promised to them at the end. And so, as I mentioned, each year they're going to have these benchmarks. We'll go through what those look like. But, I always say if they're going to be post-secondary, they have to complete these benchmarks already. It's nothing crazy or any hoops that we're going to make them jump through. And so, we just want them to start thinking about some of these steps earlier than what we usually and typically see with our post-secondary kids was their senior year. They were rushing to get all of this stuff done. And so, I think it's important that we laid this out in really kind of a step-by-step process so they don't feel so overwhelmed. I will say, if you have any questions as we go through this, please use the chat. I know they're monitoring it. I want to answer all of your questions as we talk about it and not waiting to the end. So please either raise your hand or put it in the chat for me. So as I mentioned, by the end of their senior year, they could have up to $10,000 promised to them. They can use this at any 2 4-year or non-for-profit technical college. We are still working on building out what technical colleges we are working with. But as of right now, State Tech is the one on our list that we work with most closely. The application will be through My Scholarship Central. And so if you don't know much about My Scholarship Central, we'll go through that and what that is. It's a great resource that can be utilized for all of the students in Missouri. And, for 21-22, I'm sorry, we are looking for 500 freshmen. That's how much funding we have for this program that we've set aside and kind of budgeted for this year. Since this program just started this year and it kicked off in October, I really think that if we could get to 150 to 200 students, we'll be sitting pretty, and I would feel really good about the first year's cohort. So eligibility for this program. So I mentioned that low income. What does that mean in the foundation world? So that looks like financial need of 500 or less for this program. So how we're going to determine this is the student will go out to the College Board EFC calculator, and they're going to run a simulation. And so they'll have to put in their tax information, their assets, just like they were sitting down to do a FAFSA. But it's going to give them a calculation of what was estimated for that family. And so if that number is 500 or less, they would qualify. And so then they should move forward. We want to make sure that they're a U.S. citizen or a resident alien with a verified permanent Missouri address and a valid social security number. This goes into the component of the MOST 529. So, you'll see on there that they have to open a MOST 529. All of those, requirements are set for the MOST 529. So we don't want the student to get into this and, be undocumented or have parents that are undocumented because at that point they would not qualify for a MOST 529 account. And so we're kind of setting this up, aligning with the MOST 529 requirements. That way, no student runs into any issues. And that kind of goes back to opening up a MOST 529 account, goes back to, that prepare and save. And so if the student puts in $1, that's all we're asking for them to, put in that established MOST 529 account. We'll give $100 to that account. So they'll really start their MOST 529 account out with $101. And so the goal is if, the family starts to see that it's growing and then they'll see, okay, maybe we can put $5 in or $1 here and there. And so we're not asking them to continue to contribute. We just want them to start off with a little something so that they can see how that will grow over the 4 years that their student is in high school. So how will the student apply? So the student would want to do that EFC calculation as their first step. So they'll go out to the College Board EFC calculator, they'll complete it, it is free. They can create an account with the College Board and kind of, help them through the process, saving that information. And there's some great resources out there for students, but they don't have to. They just need to go out and do that calculation. If it is 500 or less at that time that it's determined, then they can move forward with establishing a MOST 529 account if they don't already have one established. I just ask that they take a screenshot of the EFC calculation so that they can upload that to their application when they go to apply. And then, as I mentioned, we're using My Scholarship Central as our application portal. And so they'll just go make a free account through My Scholarship Central, and then they'll start applying for MyMo. So I wanted to show a little bit of some screenshots of what the calculation looked like if you've never seen the EFC calculator before with College Board. And so here you'll notice in the first little box to the left that you can really do two formula calculations. And so there's the federal methodology version or the institutional methodology, or you can have the formula in the calculation do both. And so if the student chooses to do both, that's fine. We are looking for the FM contribution number to be 500 or less. So you'll see here to the right, that red circle there is circling the number that has to be 500 or less. So if you're not familiar with My Scholarship Central, I just want to touch on it just a tad bit. I know my St. Louis folks know a lot about My Scholarship Central. This actually was a tool born in 2020 when scholarship providers in the state, kind of got together and they're like, we want all of our resources in one location. And so then My Scholarship Central was born. And so, you'll go out there and you'll see that it actually has two functionalities. One is a scholarship search. So you can go search by region. So if you're from the KC area, you'll, go out there, you can click on the KC area and see all of the scholarship providers in the area that are on My Scholarship Central. You'll notice KC Scholars, which is a big provider out in the Kansas City area, is listed on there. Now, I don't want you to get confused with the other side of this is an application portal. KC Scholars doesn't have their application through My Scholarship Central, but they're listed as a resource, through the search portal. But on the other side of it, there is an application portal. And so providers like my foundation have our application through this portal. So the student who is the senior can go out, make an application, and it really has them do, it's called the general application. I refer to this as the Common App, just because that rings a bell with the students, because that's just something they've heard before and they're used to. But the general application will allow them to do one application, and it ties them to opportunities in the state that they're eligible for. Well, knowing that this is asking a lot of questions about, what were you doing in high school? All the activities you're involved in. What do you want to do in the post-secondary world? Well, I knew that that was a barrier for my freshmen. They're not thinking about this, they won't know. And so I didn't want them to get to a point where they're like, I can't handle this, or it's too much and overwhelming, and then give up. So I created what's called a flexible application. That just means that the student will go out to My Scholarship Central and they don't have to do the general application. All they have to do is the MyMo application, and then that's it. We will use the one MyMo application that they fill out for the full 4 years. So it's not going out and reapplying. They don't have to continue to prove that they are needy. We just want them to do the one application, and we'll build on it by adding their benchmarks to it. Any questions there? Perfect. So here's a little bit of a screenshot of how to get to the application, since it's not under the general application opportunities. So you go to My Scholarship Central, you'll click apply, and then you'll see there on the opportunities dropdown, there's a grant section. And so that's where you'll find all of the flexible applications that are underneath the grant section. So you'll see MyMo was the first one when I first took this screenshot. I think we're like third or fourth now on the list because other opportunities have opened, but it's pretty simple to find it once you kind of know where you're looking for. All right, so now your student's been accepted to the program and they're still in their 9th grade year. These are the benchmarks we want them to complete for their 9th grade year to secure that first $2,500. So we want the student to maintain a 2.5 GPA or higher. We also want them to have a 90% attendance record. So it kind of, research shows it goes side by side here. If the student is showing up and attempting, then more than likely they would be successful in some type of post-secondary pathway. And so you'll see I'm going to carry all 3 of these benchmarks through this whole program. And so these will just stay in place through the next 4 slides. And then the last bullet there is attend a MyMo program event or meet virtually with one of our staff members. This really is just for them to stay in contact with us. We will be a resource as we go through this whole process. They'll have you, possibly, some type of after school program, maybe a school counselor, but then they'll also have us to help them through that pathway to getting to post-secondary and on, because we have programs that are for college students as well. And I'll go back here real fast on this benchmark. They do need to have all 3 of these things done before June 30th. So they'll want to apply for the program, up front once they meet that need calculation and they have their most 529 account established. And then they'll kind of finish out these at the end of the year, at the end of their freshman year. So then you have your 10th grade benchmarks. So now it's time to start researching and comparing colleges and majors that really fit what, maybe they want to do in life. Again, these are first-gen students, more than likely, never really thought about post-secondary being a pathway that they could even get on and, be possible for them. So they may have not even thought through this. I know a lot of schools have their, sophomores go through some type of research or use a program that they have in their schools, which is great. But we want the students in this program to make sure that they do some type of comparison to get ready for the next step. So we suggest that they use the MDHE College and Degree Search Tool. This is a free tool through the state that they offer to kind of do some comparisons between majors and also colleges in, Missouri, which is great because it gives some really important information that I think is important in that plan, prepare, and save. And I'll show you a screenshot on the next slide to kind of see what that compares. But if a school that you're working with or your student is using at the school level has something that compares just like this tool does, I'm totally fine with them utilizing this. I don't want to create another hurdle that they have to jump over or another step. So if they're already doing this in the high school, then they can utilize whatever comparison tool the high school has. And then, as I mentioned, the 3 bullets that we've already talked about, the GPA, the attendance record, and also attending an event. Here's that screenshot I was talking about with the college and degree search tool. This was just a quick search that I did. It's kind of tiny, so I apologize, but you can see there that I was searching accounting, I was looking at public and private 4 years, and then I was looking for a bachelor's degree. And you can see I was able to compare 3. I believe you were able to compare up to 5 easily, but it really gave me some great information. So, what type of college it was, the location, which is really important because, a student really needs to understand that they're going to feel comfortable wherever that is, if it's far from home or not. So we want them to know the location so they can start researching that town. Also, program delivery. Is it online? Is it in person? Is it a mix? And also the degree level type, of course, we want to make sure that they're at least looking at associates or bachelor's. If they're just looking at, programs that are higher than a bachelor's, then that's not going to be, successful on this pathway, just because that school isn't for them coming straight out of, high school, of course. And a lot of them don't understand what associate degree means or bachelor's. So some language that we need to talk through as we go through this process as well, and educating them. And then program admissions criteria, which is very important as they kind of prepare for the next 2 years through their junior and sophomore, or their junior and senior year. And then cost. I just love this tool. But again, if the school you're working with has something, please feel free to utilize that. And then your 11th grade benchmarks. So we want the student to have an ACT completion by the end of their junior year. They also need to get on those college campuses and kind of visualize themselves there, start talking to people in admissions, maybe the financial aid office, especially in their areas of interest, maybe getting with an advisor that, meets with students. When I worked at a post-secondary, we would have the chairs of each department meet with the students just so that they can kind of talk through what that degree and program really looks like, so they could see, like, is this something I could handle, and really get them excited about it. And so, we'll come up with a way that they can get on college campuses. I have heard that this may be a barrier because we know transportation could be holding the student back. And so something Mark and I have talked about is actually building out where maybe Mason has something on a college campus. So we could bus students there and kind of check 2 boxes. And so, we'll work together to make sure that we're not creating any more hurdles than we need to for these students. And then their 12th grade year. So it's going to be those FAFSA completions, formal acceptance to a college, and then of course, maintaining the GPA attendance record and attending an event. And, like I mentioned at the beginning, if they're going to be post-secondary, they have to complete all of these steps. Instead of just cramming them in all to that last year in their high school year, most of the time in the last semester, unfortunately, the spring semester, we're just having them do them earlier and think about them in a certain way so that they feel prepared and really can plan out their pathway. And just quickly, I want to talk about some of the other programs that we have at the foundation. If you're not aware, we do have Access Extra Scholarship, not to be confused with Access Missouri Grant, but this is an addition too. So those students who qualify for Access Missouri with that 12,000 EFC or less, we have a scholarship for them. Doesn't need a essay. We just want them to go out to My Scholarship Central and apply. So your current seniors who are looking for outside scholarships, this one is currently open. The application just opened, and so we're accepting students into this program, and it is a first come, first serve. So the sooner you get your application in, the more guarantee you would have to actually qualify for that scholarship. And it is renewable up to 4 years, which is amazing. We removed the ACT component this year. So there's just a GPA component of 3.5 or higher. So if you work with seniors or you know of any seniors that would be interested in this, I would get your email and you can put it in the chat for me, and I'll send you the flyer so that you can have to share. I think we have a hand raised. Nisha?
So, this is only for students that are choosing to go to college in Missouri?
That's correct. This can only be utilized in Missouri, and all of our programs actually are just for Missouri students attending Missouri schools.
And if a student, so we're talking about a freshman coming in, not really knowing, I heard you say most of the time potentially could be first generation. What is the plan if they happen to change their mind on leaving the state? Like, is there any support that they will have to be able to kind of like shift that gear?
Unfortunately, not with the funding, because it's just a promise. So we're not putting the $2,500 into their most 529 account. They would just basically at this point, if they go through the whole program and then they choose to go out of state, they would have the most 529 funds that we did put in, that $100, but they wouldn't be able to utilize the scholarship.
I was talking about like resources or whatever to kind of help gear them to, because so in my mind, they're walking with, and this program is walking with a student. So you're giving them information, you're kind of helping them to be able to get through, and then just let's just say they had an opportunity to go abroad or do something different, or the mind just changed and it was, you know what, I think I want to do this, and there's a whole career shift. Is there someone that kind of works through them with just like sending them to another resource? Because at that point, it'll be kind of pressing for time.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of resources, especially, we work a lot with My Scholarship Central, which most of the resources that are on there are just for Missouri students. And so I wouldn't know of many outside of the state of Missouri. But if it's a resource that, we can connect them to where they can maybe like, I don't know, maybe they're on the fence and they just need to talk to someone else, maybe at that school, we can definitely make those connections if they choose to kind of be open-minded with maybe sticking with their plan. But at this time, I wouldn't know many resources outside of the state that have a program like this or something that we could shift to. Does that answer your question?
It does. It does. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And hopefully, those students don't feel like I did this program for nothing. And, we can't help them once they kind of decide to go outside of the state. But we did put them on a pathway where hopefully they're going to be successful, even outside of not having this scholarship, because I do know that could be a burden. Financial aid is, as we talked about in the keynote, it's a burden on families, and it's something that we're really talking through on all levels for post-secondary. And so I'm hopeful that this program will help them at least start to understand the language even of financial aid and really understand what they're up ahead, no matter if they stay in the state or not. Dr. Campbell?
Yes, just thinking about what Naisha was talking about. I know a lot of times there's reciprocity with surrounding states. So there may be a relationship with Missouri and Illinois. Have we looked at anything like that for future, for the future, considering this is new? Maybe those are some things that didn't come to mind initially. The focus was on Missouri.
Since we're the foundation of MOHELA, really our resources all stay in Missouri. But I have heard of some institutions, I attended the CUBE conference in St. Louis, and there was an Illinois school, and he, was talking to me about this program, and he said, okay, I'm going to take your information and I'm going to go back to my enrollment management. I come from the world of admissions and also financial aid. And so, my thought when he told me that was he's going to go back to his enrollment management team and say, okay, Missouri is, stepping up and doing this with their students. Even though we're a private foundation, we're really serving all Missouri students that are low income. I imagine that other institutions are going to start picking up and saying, if you did the MIMO program to entice them to come to their school. I do know that we're working with a school in Missouri who is currently saying, and they're working through possibly a proposal through the president that says if the student was a MIMO student, could we also give them 10,000? So they actually, if they attend that school, it would be 20,000 promised to them. And so I imagine that some of that will happen. I don't foresee us working with other states, just because of our mission and, who we are as a foundation. But I imagine some schools, close to the borders are going to start picking this up and seeing what they can do to entice, students to come to their school, even that partake in this program. Does that make sense, Dr. Campbell?
Yes.
And I thought it was smart of the gentleman who was thinking that way, because,
Yes.
If I was in admissions, I definitely thought through like the A+ program when we were building out our scholarship, model, like what can we do to entice students who went through that whole A+ program to actually come to the 4-year and give them a little incentive for, completing that program. And so I would be very curious to see, and it is brand new, as you said, 3 months in. And so we may at some point be able to see if there's any other schools as we grow this out, but at this time, there's nothing that I've heard of. And then just quickly, I want to touch on some of the other programs that we have. So we do have a couple programs for current college students. So Director's Choice Emergency Grant. We have a MOFELP, which is an interest-free loan, and also our Purdy Emerging Leaders Scholarship. I don't know if any of you all work with current college students, but our Purdy Emerging Leaders Scholarship is actually getting ready to open, but we're looking for students who are Missouri students on Missouri campuses who are leading and really making a difference on their campus. That's a $5,000 scholarship that's renewable up to 3 years. So they do need to be a rising sophomore, meaning that they will be a sophomore next year in college. But that's a great opportunity as well. I'm doing a session later this afternoon on Finish Line Degree Completion Grant. This is a great resource to have in your toolkit that, if you're working with a student and the family, you find out like mom or dad stopped attending college because life happened, they want to get back in and better their life. And we'll help them because of that back balance. We'll help them get re-enrolled and pay up to $3,000. They do need to have, some requirements and be close to completion, which we'll talk through. But I've even had, people coming up to me at conferences and say, can I tell my friends and family about this? And absolutely you can. This isn't just for parents of students. And so this is for anyone in the state. I'll leave my contact information up here for a second. If this is something that you feel like maybe I should meet with you and your team, I'd be happy to schedule a Zoom or even an in-person. I work very closely with the Census and Angela Williams with this program because of the Most 529 component. A Census is the third-party company that manages the Most 529s in the state. And so we travel if we need to come to your school or your area and do a session about Most 529 and then also about MyMo and walk them through, maybe getting a Most 529 established right there and also applying for MyMo. We can work with you on that. So I would be happy to connect with you on any need that you have. And at this time, I'll open it up for any further questions that we have.
Alex, it was asked in the chat. Well, it was asked in the chat if they could get a flyer emailed to them.
Absolutely.
Naisha would like a flyer emailed. So
Naisha, do you want the access extra? And then I can also send you the MyMo flyer.
Yes, both of them will be helpful because I have some people that are in high school now, and then I have some people that are entering into high school.
Perfect.
Okay. And I know, can you see the chat now that you're not sharing your screen? Okay, so her email's in the chat. Okay.
Perfect. Yep, I got it. Any further questions? I really hope that we'll be able to, serve some of your students that you work with. I think it'll be a great opportunity and really a mindset change for these students. As I, keep mentioning, I'm sorry, but, most of the time they are first gen. And so they don't think that this is an option for them. And so once I, start talking students through the program and they really understand the difference this can make in their lives, they start to kind of pay attention a little bit more. And if they hear it from you, plus they hear it from me, and then maybe someone else, maybe they'll start to really believe and understand that this is something we can do together. And they have many resources, through this program that they can, lean on and make sure that they're successful.
I really like the, well, first off, I like how you broke it out on the benchmarks, like by grade level, but the college degree search, I like that tool. Is that, is that like at your website that anybody can use, or do you have to like enroll in or make a connection with your program before you use that tool?
It's actually through the state. It's through MDHEWD's website.
Okay.
And so I can send you the link directly also, but it is a free tool that anyone can utilize. Well, not seeing any further questions, I really do appreciate everyone choosing to be here this morning with me. I hope you will join me at my session this afternoon about Finish Line.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for your time. Does any other questions? She did put her email up on the last slide. If you did not get it, reach out to us. We could get it to you. Because you might think of a question later on today as you hear other things come up. So and she put it in the chat box. Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Okay. Well, thank you so much. I will stop the recording because I always forget to do that.